Okay, hey team. Today we're going to talk about learning to code, level up tutorials, and why e-commerce is a good way to help level up. So I'm Colby Fayok, and if you want to learn more about how you can build an online store with Next.js, headless WordPress, and Snipcart, be sure to check out my new course, E-commerce on the Jamstack, over on Level Up Tutorials. And today we have a special guest, the creator of Level Up Tutorials. We have Scott Tolinski. Scott, come on down.
Hey,
Hey,
hey, how does my
Scott.
mic sound? Sound okay?
It sounds great. Yes, it
Okay, good.
sounds great. Yeah, do you want to give yourself a quick introduction? Anything else?
Yeah, my name is Scott Tolinski. I am the creator and owner of Level Up Tutorials, the co-host of the web dev podcast Syntax, and I've been teaching web development through video tutorials since 2012, and have been consuming them and enjoying them for much longer than that. So I'm a big fan of the video tutorial medium, and uh, that's my primary way of learning and teaching. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, hey everybody, welcome to the stream. Thank you for hanging out. Um, I'm super excited to chat with you today. You know, it's been awesome to be able to have the opportunity to put a course out there. So I'm super interested in talking to you about the course platform generally
Yeah.
and learning how to code. But anybody, if you have any questions, please make sure you send them over in the chat. I'll try to ask them in context if it makes sense, or we'll hold them to the very ends with some Q&A. So I guess we could just jump right into it. Do you want to talk about what's Level Up Tutorials in the first place?
I do. Yeah, and for those of you, I'm smirking and laughing about my microphone because maybe about 2 minutes before going on the stream, I accidentally pulled everything off of my desk and knocked over thousands of dollars worth of equipment because of just a little clumsy mistake. So it's very funny. I'm happy that this is all still working, at least currently. So, ooh, no broken glass, so that's all good.
And I feel like it's on my watch. It's on my watch.
I'm just like I'm still have that adrenaline burst from knocking everything over. So I'm like,
It was loud.
yeah, it was loud. I'm sure. uh, so yeah, Level Up Tutorials. It was started in 2012 as a platform for me to teach on YouTube, and it was just that pretty much for a long time. And then in 2015, 2016, decided to turn it into my full-time job and create tutorials 24/7. And since then, I've been putting out, about 24 videos a month and doing a new tutorial series every month and just grinding hard to continue to stay up on the latest and greatest tech stuff and teach it to everybody on the platform.
That's awesome. I didn't realize that it started off as a YouTube channel. What kind of sparked the interest to move it under? Was it just like you thought the YouTube channel was doing well, so you're like, hey, I want to do this full time? Or was there something kind of more to it?
Yeah, well, the YouTube channel, it's hard to make a living off of YouTube, at least full time YouTube. And at the time, I was working at a job that was, it was boring, so to say. My job was to maintain a style guide, which was not being updated or changed.
Mm,
And I was paid very well to maintain that style guide, so I was happy to do that. But it was like, all right, this is a 2-year contract. When this contract is over, I'm going to have to start looking for work. And I had this platform, I had this opportunity, and I was thinking, you know what? Now is the perfect time for me to try to do tutorials for a living. It's something that I
yeah.
really enjoy doing. And it wasn't something that I had set out to do from the get-go, but I at that point I had probably hit 200,000 YouTube subscribers or something. So I had a good audience on YouTube, and I was thinking, you know what? If I can, turn this into a company and release more premium content, because the stuff I was doing on YouTube for a long time was definitely fly by wire. I was just not just turning on my mic, recording a tutorial, editing it, putting it up, and it wasn't
Yeah.
like forethought. There wasn't a ton of planning. There wasn't a ton of pre work that went into the courses. It was sort of whatever I felt like teaching that day. So I felt like, you know what, I could spend a lot more time, make these a lot more polished, and turn this skill I had into something that was able to support my family. So yeah.
Yeah. And it's awesome because you still do all the YouTube content. Like I see you constantly posting new videos. So it's not like you stopped doing that. You're, just doing the courses on top.
I stopped for a couple of years, but
Oh,
mostly
okay.
just because I was too burnt out. I was
Mm,
doing 24 video, and now we have third-party content creators like yourself who have been able to produce like amazing courses that are, able to fill in when I'm, not able to do a course. And we've had some really, really talented creators and many more on the horizon. So, that I've now been able to kindle my love for doing that type of YouTube content. And it's definitely
That's awesome.
something that will be being done more so as we go here.
Well, it's definitely been successful, because like I know as a content creator myself, like doing some YouTube, like you get that itch to want to create like a premium course, right? But you turned it into a complete platform, which is awesome to see, and it's been working out really well. So I wanted to ask more about level up tutorials specifically. Is there any like specific tools or tech, or is there like anything you consider about if it's the right fit for level up tutorials?
To teach specifically?
Sorry, yes, to teach, yeah.
You know what? There is a bit of that, but many times, between syntax and level up, my whole career is basically trying to stay on the pulse of new things. And so I'm often teaching the newest stuff, teaching a lot of things that just came out or just hit version 1, or maybe things that other tutorial platforms don't have. And it's really just because of my love for the new shiny tech that comes out. So I'm always looking for stuff. I have fairly good intuition for things that are going to blow up. I'm not 100%. There are some things that I really thought would take off. I did like a whole video on them or a whole series on them, and they never went anywhere. So it's like, well, okay.
Are you at liberty to say what that was, or do you not want to?
I will keep it. I'll keep it.
Fair enough. But
not hurt any feelings here.
No worries. From a developer perspective, of somebody who's trying to learn, do you think that somebody needs to have, like, I know it's all modern frameworks and such, but do you think somebody needs to have a certain level of experience to be able to use level up tutorials and get a good education?
Yeah, we definitely tailor towards the type of developer who's not like a 101. It's not their first day. Now we have tutorial series for that, like how to build your first website, which goes through like the very basics. And we have this whole what is series where we're teaching these concepts in plain English. And so there is that basic beginner content, but we focus primarily on the developer who has some bit of training and who wants to increase their their paycheck each month by learning some latest and greatest tech. I used to work at Ford, and when we let go one of our developers, and we were using Angular 1 at the time, but when we let go that developer, it was like, man, we can't find anybody who has these sort of modern skills that we were looking for with JavaScript applications, front end stuff, React stuff, whatever. We couldn't find people. And so that's really who we're focusing on teaching. It's teaching the type of person who is, they have JavaScript a little bit of background, they have HTML a little bit of background, but they want to learn how to build more interactive, more interesting things, more real world things that will get you hired somewhere.
Yeah. And I think that's important to kind of stay on like the forefront of tech, and not just because you should go out and add every single new thing to your new website, but just because then you can have a better understanding of what problems each of the different frameworks and tools are trying to solve, because they all solve things slightly differently, right? Where your use case might have that different benefits.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
So how about you? What kind of tools do you personally like to teach? Aside from like I know the generic answer from that last question was kind of like new stuff, right? Is there a particular like framework or anything that you're really interested in right now?
Framework specifically is Svelte. I'm a big fan of Svelte. I've been doing a lot of Svelte content. But my favorite thing to teach in the whole world is CSS, because it's probably just the skill I have the most accumulated of my career. It was always the thing I liked the most when I started. And so, some of my favorite courses have been modern CSS layouts and modern CSS design systems. And reason being is just, that's the kind of stuff I love. So for me to teach it, it's really easy for me to like talk about it and be excited about it and whatever. It's not having to manufacture some sort of a big project, because I have all these, this well of experience to draw on from major projects and stuff. So I have a lot of love for teaching CSS specifically, but more recently, I've been doing a lot of Svelte content, and that's probably not going to stop soon. I'm even starting a weekly Svelte show on YouTube.
Nice.
To just dive into my love for Svelte a little bit more. So yeah.
And Brittany gave you a nice shout out that said that course was good. So, props there. But yeah, no, I think CSS is an interesting thing, because like it's so powerful and it's age old with the web, right? But like I think a lot of developers shy away from actually learning, how to properly use it and how they can take advantage of its full features. Because, being able to skip to JavaScript for some simple animations, like, you could do that, but you're missing out on a lot of opportunity for other things like performance and simplicity. Sometimes, that one line with the like an animation or a transformation like can give you a lot, right?
Yeah.
Hello, doggy.
Hey, Lucy. Lucy, come here. Sorry about that.
No worries, no worries.
She may continue to bark, but yeah.
Featured guest.
Lucy. Hang on one second. I'll go put her in the house.
Okay. I really need some kind of like hold music for this. Well, this is a nice time to shout out. Make sure you check out my course on Level Up Tutorials called Ecommerce on the Jamstack. Would love for y'all to check it out and let me know what you think.
Sorry, the mean old trash man was driving through the alleyway, and she did not like that. Yeah.
Mean old trash man.
Yep.
But yeah, so switching gears a little bit more to like broad general education, what do you find is challenging for creation of educational content for developers? So like you as somebody trying to teach others, like what do you find is challenging about that? And like what you try to do to solve that?
I think I personally, so I have some barriers in my learning where, I'm dyslexic. I have some issues concentrating sometimes. And there's certain different types of learning materials that are tough for me to consume. So for me, I've always learned best in some ways where it's like teaching through metaphor and learning through metaphor, or maybe visual aspects. My very first programming language was a visual programming language called Max MSP, which is actually extremely powerful for doing audio and video manipulation. But so for me, I have such a strong like visual grasp of those types of things that I've always really wanted to connect with the people who learn best through things like usage of metaphor or plain English, where you're trying to describe some programming concept. And I always like go back to the example of like caching, where like people hear the word caching and they think it's like some sort of like fancy thing. It's really like you're just saving it later. You're saving it for later. It's like, and it's like, oh, you can just store this in a variable. Oh, that's caching. Oh, that's considered caching. Oh, like okay. Where like people really like to jump in and feel like, I'm teaching you something, and I'm so smart. Look at me, I'm so smart. Please let me teach you. And that's like definitely not the way that I learn best or even understand concepts best. So I've always tried to be describing it as what it is, why it exists, and a little bit more of the, straightforward approach rather than diving into the verbosity of some of the syntax names and even like I remember trying to learn Redux, and so many of the Redux tutorials were just like reducer to the action to the, and yes, that's what those things are called, but like when you're trying to explain it to somebody who doesn't know what those words are or what they mean, it's like not helpful at all. So always trying to use words that people know and use concepts that people could draw on from their life and pull into that.
I empathize with that completely because I felt the exact same way with Redux when I was first trying to learn it, and it was hard to wrap my head around because there was like so much terminology until like you start imagining it in a little bit different way where you actually see what's happening, and it's not as complicated as it starts to look once you start to unwrap that. So that's definitely interesting. I also think that, from a perspective, I really like to go in and like not make assumptions of what people already know, which I think is important because sometimes people will just like, skip straight through, and a lot of people miss context for what that is.
Totally. I remember early on some of my Meteor tutorials, there was like from the database, you're returning some data, or I forget what the concept was. There were Meteor methods. And I was like, inside of here, you just have this JavaScript object. This is a normal JavaScript object. There's nothing special about this object. You can put anything you want in here and it will return. And people were like, oh, I get it. It is nothing special, even though this thing is doing all this stuff for me. There's nothing fancy going on here. I return the object. I get the object. I can use it later, even though it's underneath some fancy names or whatever it is behind it.
Yeah. I think like when you kind of make something appear as like magic, like I like to look at React hooks a similar way, and I know under the hood there's more complication to it, but ultimately at the end of the day, you're creating a function that is able to do something, has more access to the internals, but ultimately it's a function, right? And I think once that clicked and understood that it was destructuring things, like being able to explain it in a different way is so helpful.
Totally.
Now, kind of switching from the other side of thing, and the answer might be similar. What do you find any other different challenges from people who are trying to learn, and where people actually end up struggling the most when they are trying to learn?
Yeah, a lot of the times people struggle with concepts that they like don't know what they don't know. So they're thinking about, I'm trying to learn X, Y, and Z, but I don't know ABC first. So
Mm,
I'm at this. I'm standing at this spot. I don't know how I got here, and I'm trying to go over there. But like you don't know you don't know which direction to even go. So a lot of the times it's like making sure that everybody is up to speed in the same direction, the same, everybody knows kind of where they are, where they're going. But it's funny because it's such a thing where um, people will ask questions and you can tell by the question that they're asking that they do not know what they're asking. They don't know the words
mm.
that they're asking. And being able to identify when people don't know what they don't, like what does this person actually know and what they doesn't is a big deal to be able to get on the same page, to be able to know where to go.
And I think there's a funny correlation to that when trying to Google an answer, right? Because like
Mhm.
sometimes you know what you're trying to do, but you just don't know how to phrase it, and like it's definitely there. You're just not sure of those magical search words, right?
That's so true. And there's like no more indicative way of doing this than like when you ask a question and the answers are like, what are you trying to do here? Like, what were you actually trying to accomplish? And that's like a good indication. You're like, wait, maybe I'm really not looking at this the right way. And it everybody's brain is going to try to solve a problem a specific way based on your past experiences and understanding of things. So like if you're asking a question and everybody is very confused, then that's like a good idea that maybe you need to like rethink what that question actually is, or what you're trying to
Right.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So kind of looking at the different types of projects, do you think that certain kinds of like educational projects like that you have in your courses serve to help people learn better? So like my context here is an online store here, right?
Mhm.
Like I think there's something compelling. There's a lot of pieces integrated in a lot of store that I feel make it a compelling use case to learn. Do you find like any particular projects that are helpful in that regard?
Yeah. In fact, e-commerce is one I shy away from, and it's funny because I got some of my biggest bump in viewership ever was from doing like 80 Magento tutorials. So I have
Oh,
like
wow.
a long history of doing e-commerce tutorials, but like e-commerce has so many moving parts and pieces. It makes it a great example, but it also makes me like prone to make mistakes when I'm teaching. And it's like it's so funny because it's such a good example because you have so many facets of things that people need to use in their everyday life. Not to mention e-commerce shops, they make money, so there's a lot of people who are coming in at like, I have this goal of having a store to make money. The classic example is always like a to-do list because it has you're having changes most likely to a database or something. You're making changes, you have UI changes, you have a lot of
Mm,
like good opportunities there. But to-do lists are fairly boring, right? So if I'm ever doing a to-do list, I try to dress it up in a different way and say this is like a grocery list or something like that. But
yeah.
finding those examples of things where, like a quiz is another good one to do. Um,
Mm,
I'll do a quiz component. I used to do like a monthly resolutions app as like my main go-to as a thing. But finding these things where the goals and concepts of the application are front and center rather than the application itself, right? I'm trying to have a thing that will be somewhat useful as a jumping off point for you, but in the same regard, it's going to teach you the things that you need to know to build whatever it is you're trying to build. If I'm trying to build an app to water my flowers, there are very things that you would want in that app. You'd want to be able to,
mm.
add which plants you have. Okay, so you have those types of things where you're adding something like a to-do list. You might have like a timer or something like that. But just identifying the things that apps might have that are going to be useful features for people to know, and then integrate them into something else, maybe slyly, so that they don't even know that they're being fed like basically a to-do app essentially.
Yeah, for sure. And like I think there's a lot of context you can put in. Like one thing that I tried to do in my course is I introduced concepts like React hooks and stuff through it
Mhm.
as we were working through it. And like that's not something that's the focus of the course, but like it's a concept I can help learn, like help teach through that that course mechanism. Um but the gardening app was interesting to me. Do you find that like proper courses as opposed to finding a project where maybe you want to solve something in your real
Mm.
life, right? Like a to-do list could be that if you're looking to build your to-do list to use. But real projects like the garden, do you think there's a like a different sense of education from finding something you're interested in doing that will impact your real life?
It's interesting because I always like tell students when they're taking courses to like to modify what I'm doing. If I'm saying, if I'm saying to do a gardening app, don't do a gardening app, do a dance app or a workout app or something that is like interesting to you. Because
Yeah.
um one, by not typing the same things I'm typing, not doing the exact same things that I'm doing, you'll get out of that zone where you're just copying and pasting and you'll be thinking a little bit more about the words you're writing, but also it's going to be mean more to you, which is such a big thing. If the project means more to you, if it's something that you're interested in or excited in, then you're going to be more compelled to work on it. It's just, you start to say like, oh, I could actually use this app. What would be really neat is if this app did this X, Y, and Z for me. Maybe I'll try
Yeah.
to do that when I'm done with this course, or maybe I'll try to do that in the middle of this course, and maybe I'll try and fail and whatever. But at least, there's a little bit of trying in there.
Yeah, and I think that's important. I really like that idea of like using different examples but following the same material, because like you're also kind of removing that crutch where the crutch is you showing exactly what to do
Mhm.
for that project, right? Where without that, you're really trying to push the person to learn and teach those concepts through their own medium.
Yeah, and it's easy to follow along and just paint by numbers and follow along. It's easy to get into that trap, and it's always something that I strive to encourage to get out of that trap because it is it's this. People always say, "Well, I took the tutorial. What next?" Well, you got a ton of options. What are you
Right.
interested in? Like, what do you want to make? Retake the tutorial, but this time make it something you like.
Yeah, for sure. So, just a quick question about the e-commerce thing before that I had written down. In regards to like e-commerce generally, do you think there was kind of any intention on having, because you have a good amount of e-commerce courses on there? Like, was there any intention on that, or And the reason I'm really only asking this is because my course is an e-commerce course, right? So I'm
Yeah.
curious.
People ask a lot for e-commerce. It's very, very something that people want to know. Um, you know, I have this background where I've done a lot of e-commerce work in my professional agency life, mostly with Magento. And so for me, it's so funny to see these new platforms because they're so much infinitely better than that what I had to teach, what I had to use before in my dev life. So yeah, no, I think it is. It's just like e-commerce is always in demand. People want to know how to do that stuff. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of mystery
Mhm.
involved. And it's shocking how awesome these modern tools are to allow you to do some of that stuff so much better than you
Yeah.
could before.
For sure. And in regards to like picking a new course, I know like you want to try to teach like the new like awesome new frameworks and tools, but do you have any particular strategy? Because I
Mm.
would imagine like just because you get excited about something, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to turn into a level up tutorials course, right? Like as opposed to maybe like a YouTube video. Do you have like a strategy that you go with?
I take a lot of notes. I write a lot of things down, and so like I have a Notion document of hundreds of course ideas that are just potential. I'm interested. I'm a little bit more interested, and then they're in a Kanban board about it, and it's like okay, once they get to this level, and I just have again, Wes and I talk about this stuff every week on syntax, like whatever latest tech is out or whatever kinds of things we're interested in. And so for me to have it be a good course, I have to be excited about it. Um, and I never want to drum up some sort of a fake excitement because I'm one of those people that when I get excited, I'm like bopping around. I'm very excited. I'm dancing. I'm doing all sorts of
I
stuff.
feel you.
Yeah, I get very, very excited. And sometimes I wonder if people think that's manufactured, but in reality, it's not. And I only pick things that get me that excited about it. For instance, um, we have a course coming out this month on Prisma that I actually didn't do, but the next month's course is going to be on Astro. And Astro is
Mm,
one of those things that I've had my eye on since they first announced it. And like now that it's in a point where I'm able to really teach it, I think there's a lot of interesting stuff there. you know, I'm actually like giddy to start recording that course. And the only reason
That's
I
awesome.
haven't yet is because I have too much other like stuff on my to-do list right now. But I'm like, oh, I got to get done with this stuff so I can start my Astro course. I'm like, I'm that excited about it. So, you know, it's easier now that I'm doing 6 tutorials a year rather than 12 tutorials a year. Because when I was hitting 12 tutorials a year, I'm like really thinking really hard about, you know, here are these things, but you know, you finish with the one course and then you only have a week to 2 weeks to start really getting excited about something else. And that can be really tough after 2 years of doing that. So
Yeah.
now that I have 2 months to think about a course or a month and a half to think about a course, I'm like it's almost too much time because there's so many things I want to do courses on. And it's always been this way. I mean,
Right.
I was doing like 350 videos on YouTube a year. So
Well,
I just, if there's one thing that's about, I
just
get
shy
excited
of one a
about
day.
things. Yeah, just shot of one a day. I was doing 3 on Mondays and 3 on Wednesdays because those were the days I used to go to dance practice. And then I got a concussion and I couldn't go to dance practice. So I filled that time, the Mondays and Wednesdays, with 3 tutorials each.
Makes sense. That's awesome. And it's funny that you mentioned Astro because my last question is going to be like the future of level up tutorials. And I was going to say, aside from an Astro rewrite, because
not
because I know you just rewrote it. And so we'll see.
It-
We'll see. Depends on how excited about this course you get, right?
Yeah, right. I know. Yeah, it took like what, like a year and a half of doing Svelte courses before I was like, could I? Well, maybe. Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
Level Up is going to be on Svelte for a long time. I'm not doing another rewrite. That is not going to happen.
That's awesome. Well, you know, I saw some of the updates and it's looking great. So I'm excited to see, you know, I think, you know, there's something awesome about being able to put those kind of frameworks in context and build on them because that's how you ultimately learn, right? But
Oh,
then
yeah.
being able to have something that you're happy with and comfortable with so you can start like iterating and you feel comfortable working in it because there's nothing worse than having a project that you just don't feel like you're able to like be productive in, right? So having that is important.
Yeah, there's just so many things, even with the previous React site. And it was originally written in create class or create component, then class components, then function components, and then in TypeScript with function components. And you know, it's bound to build up a lot of cruft at some point. But also React just kind of has this way of making things complex where sometimes sometimes that complexity feels great. And other times you're just like, I just want to do this thing. I just want to do X, Y, and Z. I don't want to have to do all this other stuff. So I feel like a renewed sense of like excitement to work in the code base.
That's
If
awesome.
there was ever a loss of that excitement, because you know it's my code base, I keep it pristine. You know, I like to keep it clean and nice. But you know, for me, it's like just that you're right. There's some level of excitement that I get now of working in the code base that just feels really at home and good to be in.
That's awesome. So I wanted to also ask about the Discord community. Was there any like did you just kind of spur that up to answer questions about level up tutorials, or do you have like a bigger goal with it? Because I really enjoy myself being in there. Like there's a lot of awesome people in there and being able to chat not just about like the code stuff, but you know, there's other random things that we can chat about.
Yeah, I mean, developers are multifaceted. Everybody's got